Welcome to video 2, all about pain and your brain. So I'd like to start by introducing this concept of a neurotag. A neurotag is simply a group of neurons in the brain that link up together in response to something you've done or experienced so that you're more prepared to produce an output or response to that in the future. We know that neurons that fire together wire together, and that's the basis of practice. If you want to learn a new skill, like a golf swing or playing the piano, you need to practice. And when you practice, you're linking up neurons in the brain. So, for example, it might be something from your perceptual system, like your eyes when you're looking at the ball, and something from your motor system, swinging the club with your arms. Or it might be hearing the music with your auditory system and your motor cortex, moving your fingers in a precise and skilled way. That's creating neurotags. And neurotags, whenever one part of the tag is pulled, we can reproduce the body's response. And I explained in video 1 that pain is an output. It's a response by the body to a stimulus, a real or imagined perceived stimulus. It's important to know this for a pain-free back, because we need to know that pulling on any part of the neurotag can trigger that response. This is a really important step towards achieving a pain-free back, because every time that we go to do an activity or something that we're worried about, or that where we feel a spasm or a pain in our back, it can put us back a step and have us thinking, oh, I've hurt my back again. It's important to know that pain and harm are not the same thing, and that there may be many reasons why that neurotag has been triggered and why you're feeling the pain response, and they may not have anything to do with organic harm actually happening to the tissues of the back. I'd like to take another example, and if we're honest with ourselves, we can probably all admit that at some point in our lives we have felt sad listening to a breakup song. So maybe you had a romantic relationship that came to an end, and months or even years after that event, you heard a sad song that came on, and it took you back to that time, and it reproduced an emotional response, an output in the body. Most of us have had that experience, and that is an example of a neurotag. And you can see on the screen that the response that you have is dependent on all of those factors. So your memories, your beliefs, your current state of mind, your emotional state, your function, and what you've learned to associate with that particular situation and context. And remember that I said in video 1 as well that anything that's frightening and or painful is encoded and learned at a really deep level. It's learned very rapidly, and your body's able to trigger that output again. And you can see why that would have an evolutionary benefit if it's something that's dangerous or harmful. What's going wrong with this chronic pain, and particularly chronic back pain, is that just any kind of minor trigger on this neural network is enough to produce the pain response. Once we know that and accept that about ourselves, we can set about attacking and building this new neural network to enable us to do the things we want to do, play sport and work out, without triggering that pain response. Now you might be thinking, this stuff he's talking about, emotion and sad songs, is kind of a bit woo-woo. Well, it may sound that way, but I want to show you that it's not woo-woo, and there's some hard physiological science behind all this. So a little bit of brain anatomy. Within your limbic system that processes emotions, there are two structures that I want to talk about briefly. One is the amygdala and one is the hippocampus. Now your amygdala is going to respond emotionally to everything. If you've read the book The Chimp Paradox, then the chimp is really the amygdala. That's what he's talking about there. And once you've been through a frightening or traumatic experience like hurting your back and having it affect your day-to-day living, that amygdala is primed to reproduce that fearful emotional response in your body to stop you from hurting yourself again. For example, something like alcohol will mediate that. Now we all know that if we have a drink, it lowers our inhibitions. And the science proves this. If you take people who are heavy drinkers and have them drink alcohol and show them angry faces or happy faces, the alcohol interferes with the coupling between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the more human, rational part of your brain. And it stops the people who are drunk from processing those angry or happy faces in the same way as a sober person. And if you just take a few seconds, think back to when you were last out of your mind on booze, you'll recognize that it lowers your inhibitions and it stops you from making effective decisions because it acts on the amygdala. Some people, myself included, may have in the past have turned to pharmacological interventions like drinking or painkillers to blunt that pain response and get through the day. I do not recommend that as a long-term solution. Fortunately for us, there are things we can do using the knowledge of the brain to reframe our relationship to our pain and get beyond it. And what we need to do is to grow the hippocampus. We need to store new long-term memories in the hippocampus. This is actually the intended goal of cognitive behavioral therapy or talking therapy, where you go back over an experience and you attach positive associations to it, and most importantly, you have agency, so you're in control. And that's what we're going to look at in our forthcoming videos. How do we reframe this relationship with our own body? How do we get back to doing the activities that we want to do and not reproduce that pain signal? It's all about toning down the amygdala, the emotional response, increasing the stored memories in our hippocampus, and learning to move and be active and play sport again in a pain-free way. Join me next time. We're going to go through a little bit more philosophy on our next video. Thanks for watching.